Good day, everyone. I am Adi Nicole L. Kadungog, 3AB Psychology A, and I will going to report a special chapter on our topic, how standard is standard in measurement. For our topic outline, since this is a special topic, there is no defined or definite um, a topic outline, but I think these are the things or that you need to know before we proceed to my topic. First is the definition of standard in its use. Second is standard unit of measurement. Third is defining standardized test and test manual scoring guides. And you have to know the ambiguities in psychological testing and assessment and the non-standard approach of the word standard. For our intended learning outcomes, it is to understand the importance of standardized tests in psychological testing and assessment, eliminate ambiguities in using the words standard and standardized, and determine if a standardized test is a true standard. So before we start on our topic, I would like to give you little trivia. Do you know that the foot, a unit of distance measurement in the United States, probably has its origin in the length of a British king's foot use as a standard, one that measures about 12 inches. And it was not very long ago that different localities throughout the world had a different feet to measure by. We have come a long way since then, especially with regard to standards and standardization in measurement. Now, in the field of psychological testing and assessment, there are still more than a little confusion when it comes to the terms like standard and standardization. There is definitions or how the standard or the word standard is used. It could be used as a noun or an adjective. First, let us explore how the word standard used as a noun. So as a noun, may be defined as that which others are compared or to or evaluated against. An example would be tests with exceptional psychometric properties as being the standard against which all similar tests are judged. Another example would be an exceptional book on the subject of psychological testing assessment, just like what we have, or the ninth edition, for example, may be judged as the standard against which all similar textbooks are judged. So now let us understand how the word standard be used as an adjective. Standard as an adjective often refers to what is usual, generally accepted, or commonly employed. An example for this is the standard way of conducting a particular measurement procedure, especially as a mean of contrasting it to some newer or experimental measurement procedure. Now, another example would be a researcher experimenting with a new multimedia approach to conducting a mental status examination might conduct a study to compare the value of this newer approach to the standard mental status examination interview. Now we have understand how the word standard could be used as a noun and an adjective, and they are very opposite to each other. Now, in some areas of psychology, there has been a need to create a new standard unit of measurement in the interest of better understanding or quantifying particular phenomena. An example is studying alcoholism and associated problems. Many researchers have adopted the concept of standard drink. So what is this standard drink? So standard drink is designed to facilitate communication and to enhance understanding regarding alcohol consumption patterns, intervention strategies, and costs associated with alcohol consumption. Now, the use of the word standard drink conveys information to the knowledgeable researchers about the amount of alcohol in the beverage. Now, to better understand that, the word standard drink has been an example in this to standardize the verb as to standardize. Now, Um, the verb to standardize refers to making or transforming something into something that can be served as a basis of comparison or judgment. Now, what I have said earlier, this standard drink, standard alcohol beverage containing 15 millimeter of alcohol as standard drink. So they were able to standardize that the 15 millimeter of alcohol is a standard drink. So they were those researchers were able to standardize this a standard drink if it contains 15 millimeters of alcohol. Now, another example would be a standardizing of definition. So, Anderson 2007 was able to wants to standardize the meaning of creative writing. So, as a verb standardize, so Anderson sought to standardize the meaning, which means he wants to have an objective definition of the word creative writing. But what does it really mean when we say the test is standardized? Now we have here figure 1, Ben's cold gut preference test, or what we call the CCPT. So as I read, Ben owns a small deli bouquet that sells 10 varieties of private label cold cuts. Ben had read somewhere that if a test has clear specific methods for test administration and scoring, then it must be considered standardized. He then went to create his own standardized test, the cold gut preference test, or what we call the CCPT. It consists only of 2 questions. What do you like today? And follow up with a question, how much of that would you like? So Ben trained his only employee, his wife, on the test administration and test scoring of the CCPT. So just thinking, does the CCPT really qualify as a standardized test? To answer this question, let us define what is a standardized test. So test developers standardize tests by developing replicable procedures for administering the test and for scoring and interpreting the test. So we question now, does the CCPT replicable? Does the CCPT could be applied to any kind of businesses? And a standardized test reflects a clear specified procedure for administering, scoring, and interpreting. So as how what I will going to I will go back on this page. He says that the CCPT has a test administration and test scoring. So do you think that the CCPT really is a standardized test? So traditionally, standardized tests for those tests that has clear specified procedures for administration, scoring, and interpreting in addition to norms. Some support that CCPT is standardized because the test items are clearly specified, presumably along with rules for administering and rules for scoring and interpretation. Still, assessment professionals does not qualify it as a standardized test. Standardized test, it comes with a manual which is a part of the test package. Ideally, these manuals, which may be published in one or more booklets, will provide potential users with all of the information they need to use in the test in a responsible fashion. Also, the test manuals enables the test user to administer the test in a standardized manner in which it was designed to be administered. All test users should be able to replicate the test administration as prescribed by the test developer. So little deviation is done from examiner to examiner, owing to the rigorous presentation of training that that all potential users of the test have undergone prior to administering the test of the test taker. So it means that when you were going to have a standardized test, you are not just doing it on your own. It has to have a proper procedure, a proper way of how to conduct it, and a training of those members or those people who would like, or professional individuals who would going to administer the test for the test takers. Now, does the CCP, now does the CCPT have undergone several preparations and training? I would answer no. It was just like subjective. Now let us tackle test manuals contain detailed scoring guidelines. If the test is one of ability that has correct and incorrect answers, the manual will ideally contain an ample amount of examples of correct, incorrect, or partially correct responses, complete with scoring guidelines. Now, if the test measures personality, interest, or any other variable that is not scored as correct or incorrect, then ample example of potential responses will be provided along with the complete scoring guidelines. Basically means that whether it is about the personality or interest or any correct or incorrect answers, uh, um, the manual or should have a scoring guidelines, a complete scoring guidelines, or a detailed scoring guidelines about the answers of the respondents or the test takers. Now, according to Robertson 1990, standardization is the process employed to introduce objectivity and uniformity into test administration, scoring, and interpretation. Now, standardization could be applied to standardizing all the elements of a standard test that need to be standardized. Assessment professionals develop and use standardized tests to benefit test takers, test users, and our society at large. Now, let us take, for example, the standardized test for leadership. When we say that Robertson said that employed to introduce objectivity and uniformity into the test administration. In the test of the leadership, we might speak of standardizing the definition of leadership and how leadership was being um, define, standardizing test administration instruction, the standardizing test score, and standardizing test interpretation, and so forth. Basically means that all of the elements on the standardized test for leadership is being standardized, not just a partial part of the test standard for leadership is being standardized. All of the parts of the standard test for leadership are being standardized. However, there are still a number of other ambiguities or double meaning in psychological testing and assessment when it comes to the use of other standard, of the word standard and its derivatives. Now, let us take, for example, z-score is considered to be the standard, but when it is linearly transformed to any other type of standard scoring system, it becomes a standardized score. Now, that eliminates the ambiguities, right? So when it is just a z-score, it is a standard. But when it is transformed to any other statistical method or using any other statistical method, it becomes a standardized score. Now, I hope that is clear to everyone and how standard and standardized in psychological testing and assessment are used. So the word standard is also used as a non-standard approach. So an example of this is the error in psychological testing and assessment, which could be characterized as a standard. So in the field of psychological testing and assessment, many types of standard of error occurs And this allows to estimate the efficiency, accuracy, and consistency of a sample. In other words, it measures how precisely a sampling distribution represents a population. Some types of these errors are the standard error of measurement, also known as the standard error of score. So what is it? The statistical used to estimate the extent to which an observed score deviates from a true score. The standard error of estimate. In regression, an estimate of the degree of error involved in predicting the value of one variable from another. The standard error of mean, a measure of sampling error. The standard error of difference, a statistical used to estimate how large a difference between two scores should be before the difference is considered statistically significant. As what I have told earlier, it estimates efficacy, accuracy, and consistency of a sample. So that is why the standard of error in psychological testing and assessment is important. Now, for our summary, the definition of standard could be divided into two parts, the adjective and the noun. As an adjective or a noun, there has been need to create a new standard unit of measurement in the interest of better understanding or quantifying particular phenomena, just like the standard drink. So the verb to standardize refers to making and transforming something into something that can be served as a basis of comparison or judgment. Now, the standardized tests, for those tests that have clearly specified procedure and administration, scoring, and interpretation in addition to norms. The test manuals contain detailed scoring guidelines for those that could be answered as like true or false or A, B, or C, and those tests about interest, personality that cannot be answered by A, B, or C. So standardization could be applied to standardizing all the elements of a standardized test that need to be standardized, not just one part of the standardized test or we are going to standardize, but all of the elements included in standardized test should be standardized. So the word standardized is also used as a in a non-standard approach, just like in the standard error of measurement. Now, we concluded by encouraging the exercise of critical thinking upon encountering the word standard. The next time you encounter the word standard in any context, give some thought on how the standard really is, certainly with regard to its context of psychological testing and assessment. And what is presented as standard usually turns out to be not as standard as we might expect it to be. Now for my reference. Now thank you everyone for listening. I hope you have gained something from my report. God bless us all.